Hello everyone and welcome to the CrowCast Preview. I'm your host Scorpus and with me tonight on the cast is Mr. Mystery Guest. How did your tips fare this week, MMG?
I've completely given up. I don't even check how well I did each week now. I just sort of do it and hope for the best.
Okay, let me check just in the tipping. Let me see how you're doing in the leaderboard at the moment, because I know also Phoenix, one of our guests who's not on tonight, hasn't been doing too well either. So you're currently sitting on 60. I'm on 67. So yeah, you're not actually doing that badly. I reckon you should keep going. Anyway, we'll be getting straight into this week's match against St Kilda. Of course, we'll be discussing Game of Crows a little bit later and how you can win that case of beer. But for now, we'll be getting straight into the match, which is on Sunday. It's our first Sunday game of the year, and it's at the awful time of 4:10 p.m. So, yeah, not a great time slot here, but it is at Adelaide Oval. Because of the Sunday match, there is only the squads of 25 that have been released, so we've made 3 ins to our squad at the moment of Laird, McKay and M. Crouch, Matty Crouch that is. No outs confirmed at the moment. For St Kilda, they've brought in Goddard, Billings, Webster and Lee, and coming out is their main key defender, Sam Fisher, with a hamstring injury. At the moment, we're probably expecting Laird to come in and Van Berlo to come out. And for St Kilda, their board on Big Footy suggesting that Goddard, Billings and Webster are the most likely ins for them. Coming out would be Fisher, McKenzie and Sinclair. So we'll see how that plays out tomorrow on Friday. I guess some of you guys listening to the recording will already know. But so we're not probably going to discuss changes too much today. Notable omissions, Brad Crouch is playing SANFL this week, so he's not in contention for selection at all. I think they're going to try and get him a couple more games there before he comes back in. And yeah, the last match was at Adelaide Oval last year, and we won that match pretty comprehensively, so it was a good win for us. Mr. Mystery Guest, are you happy with Brad Crouch playing the SANFL, or would you have liked to see him come in this week?
Well, based on the selectors dropping him a couple of weeks ago, I see him coming back in. I would be surprised if he comes back before we play North again.
Yeah, the game that's, of course, after the bye. I agree. I think he's probably going to stay out for a couple more weeks, unfortunately. But hopefully he can start building up that form in the twos. One of the interesting things we've noted is that Henderson has been named on the field for our team, so it doesn't look like he'll be coming out at this stage. Again, we'll know more on Friday. Probably would have liked to see him come out, but oh well. If we're only going to drop one of the guys, it's got to be Van Berlo, so fingers crossed that happens. But we'll move into key matchups for this match against St Kilda. They're going in a little bit weakened in their defence, having to play probably one of their young guys in Goddard, as well as, of course, they've got Dempster and Gilbert and probably Geary going to Betts. Mr. Mystery Guest, how do you see the defensive lineups coming for us this week?
I think Goddard's a pretty good young player, but obviously pretty unexperienced, which is a pretty big loss. I don't see their defence, even before he was out, I didn't really sort of defence standing up to our forward line anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's they've got a lot of, I wouldn't call them starred players in their defence at the moment. I think that Fisher, like you said, pretty significant loss for them. He's probably their best defender at the moment, and yeah, they could struggle without him. With Goddard having to maybe go to someone like, Jenkins even. I mean, that's a huge task for someone like him. And if Dempster, maybe Webster or Robertson or Gilbert or those guys having to take, Walker, Lynch, McGovern, I mean, our forward line could have a field day there. In terms of our defence, it looks like, I mean, they've got 4 talls at the moment, so they're playing probably McCartan and Bruce mainly inside their forward 50. They've got Rewalt roaming all over the place. And Tim Membry as well, sort of a 4th tall, similar to, I guess, our McGovern. Our defence, luckily we're playing the 3 tall defenders in Talia, Hardigan, Lever, and I guess Cheney as well will be chipping in there. What about their small forwards? Mr. Mystery Guest, do you see any danger from their smalls this week?
I think Billings could be a player, might do some damage, but I think out of our defence actually matches up with theirs. I think Brown should be back in this week, so that will obviously help. See them doing a lot of damage, to be honest.
Yeah, I think probably the most damaging forwards would be their talls. They take a lot of marks inside 50. They're quite strong there. In fact, they average the third most marks inside 50 of any team in the competition at the moment. But yeah, like, they're small forwards. I mean, Billings is a good player. They probably have Jake Gresham, one of their first-year players, rotating through there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's all up to stopping their tall forwards this week. If we can really get a hold of Bruce and, Membry's actually been playing pretty well at the moment. So probably Bruce, Membry, and Rewalt. If we can isolate them and keep them to a low score, which something we've been doing pretty well over the past couple of weeks, like we saw against GWS. I think we only conceded 2 goals against their tall forwards. So if we can do the same to St Kilda, they might really struggle to get scores out of their smalls and even their midfielders. The midfield, though, they've got some decent players in there. They've got Armitage, Stephen, and Ross. I think they're doing very well this season. Probably Ross, Seb Ross, or that guy. He's surprised me a little bit in terms of how well he's been going. And in the ruck, I think Hickey. How do you see the ruck contest, MMG? Do you reckon is Jacobs going to do a bit of a touch-up on Hickey this week at Adelaide Oval?
Well, so far this season, Hickey's probably been the better ruckman out of the two of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I actually thought, even though Jacobs didn't win the headouts, I actually thought he played a lot better last week.
Yeah, we were discussing on the review cast about how well Jacobs was performing against Mumford. He really nullified a lot of Mumford's abilities. I would agree, though. I think Hickey is probably the stronger of the two ruckmen at the moment. But if Jacobs, if he can sort of follow on from the form of last week, he's been a bit up and down this season. But if he can continue that into another match, he could at least even up this contest a little bit. But I mean, they don't really play a second ruckman, so it'll definitely be a one-on-one battle throughout most of the week. How about the midfield, Mr. Mystery Guest? They've got a lot of outside players, but they struggle a little bit in the contested possession. Is that something we can use to our advantage?
I think so. At the moment, we're almost an insider short. On paper, we're almost an insider short, but then Charlie Cameron have doing their little bit on the side, which is really helpful. Our setup was a lot better last week. I think if we play the same way we did against GWS, then we should win the midfield battle. Yeah,
it's kind of interesting to see how these two teams will match up, considering we've put a lot of work into our outside work at the moment. We've brought in those extra players like Seedsman. We're playing a few more outside guys at the moment. Atkins has come along really well, but it's a real strength for St Kilda. Of course, like I mentioned, they're third for contested possessions this season on average. They have a few more handballs than Adelaide. They actually have more disposals on average than us. And they have pretty good disposal efficiency as well, averaging about 75% for the season, whereas we're more like a 72%. So if they're going to cut us up in any way, it's probably going to be on the outside. But in contrast, like we've been talking about, we're third for contested ball over this season, whereas St Kilda is only 15th. So there's a huge differential there. We're slightly better at the clearances. We're better at rebounding. We're better at inside 50s. They have a little bit of a heads up on us in the tackling, but I think if we can, like you mentioned, we're probably one down on our inside midfielders at the moment, but against GWS, against Sydney, and against some other teams, we've been doing quite well in that inside ball and in the clearances and in the contested possession. So, if we bring our cutting up game, we could really dominate them in that facet. I think something else that was interesting that's worth mentioning is last week, St Kilda were playing the worst team in the competition in Fremantle. They won pretty comprehensively after overrunning Freo after three-quarter time, but Fremantle actually dominated the clearances, contested possessions and inside 50s by quite a significant margin against them. So it's kind of interesting because Fremantle has no forward line, whereas we have arguably the strongest forward line in the entire competition. And if we can really, get the ball in quickly and kill them on the inside 50s, especially considering, we've been leaking a lot of inside 50s, but against GWS we were quite good there. We could do a huge number on them if we really get a hold of them. Another interesting thing, Mr. Mystery Guest, this game it's at Adelaide Oval, so it's our second Adelaide Oval game in a row, and St Kilda's most of their games have been at Etihad. Is this a huge problem for St Kilda travelling away from home?
I haven't seen many of their from home, so it's kind of hard to say. We know that the Bulldogs are well away from Etihad. That could be a symptom of St Kilda. I don't think there's anything definitive about that, though. I reckon they played pretty well against Port before the last quarter in round one, of where they're probably the better team for most of the day, and Port ran over the top. Seeing more of a trend this year that there's a little bit more advantage to the home team, especially I think it's evened out a little bit in the last few weeks, but early on, it seemed like home team was getting a bigger advantage.
Yeah, because we've seen teams like GWS who are really, really strong at their home grounds. Sydney and West Coast, we know have been really strong there at their home grounds for years, and we've been doing quite well. But I see what you're saying about St Kilda's form and everything, that it's really hard to gauge where they're at the moment, because when they played away, so they played West Coast in Perth and they got absolutely destroyed. They played Hawthorn down in Tasmania, and they got really close against Hawthorn down there, whereas we all know Hawthorn's a really strong team in Tasmania, so that was a bit of an interesting one. And then, of course, they, like you mentioned, they played Port in round one, and they just lost in the last quarter. Whereas they've been, again, also up and down at home. So they've had a huge loss to Western Bulldogs and GWS at Etihad. And then they've had some decent wins against Essendon and Fremantle. Admittedly, those are the two bottom teams. Collingwood, they were kind of bad at the time, still out of the 8, but they beat them. And they had a win against Melbourne, who we know are kind of pushing for the 8 at the moment. So it's really, really difficult to gauge them at the moment. But I think one of the key things, for us at least, is that at the moment we're a 4-goal better team per match than them. And that is going to increase further because we're playing at Adelaide Oval with that home ground advantage. So, yeah, I mean, they're 3 out of their 4 wins being at Etihad. It could come to hurt them, but I don't think they're as reliant on Etihad Stadium as the Western Bulldogs, who we've seen crumble outside of their home deck. I think their game plan is a little bit better there. What about their pressure on the ball, Mr. Mystery Guest? How do you see them in their two-way running? Because we know Adelaide's not that great. Do you reckon St Kilda are that good at their defensive pressure?
Well, they talk themselves up a little bit about it. Obviously, crazy manic pressure. They do put emphasis on their tackling pressure. I think defensively, it depends how smart we are in our clearances and our stoppage work. If we go back to the crash and smash and grab style, then they can probably hold us up in the middle. If we play a bit smarter, I think we can work it out. Because I saw we managed to get some clean possession against GWS, and I saw them really hold up the Bulldogs the week previous. It's about how it's partly dependent on us, and if we play smart, there's ways around.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you just dropped out or something there, but we'll keep going. Yeah, I think their defensive pressure is probably a weak point for them. I know they talk up their tackling and everything, but I was watching some of their replays just recently, and when they're up and going, they play a lot on the wings, transitioning from their defensive 50 to inside 50. They tend to switch into the corridor, shortly before they enter the 50. So the pressure that they put on when they're sort of losing the clearances, which is pretty typical for St Kilda over the past couple of rounds and everything. Yeah, they don't seem to be able to stop those really quick entries or the quick transition from the opposition. So again, these are some of our strengths, and I think we'll do reasonably well this week against them. It just depends, against Fremantle earlier this season, we were playing them at Adelaide Oval, and this was a match that, we're all expecting to win considering Fremantle's position. They're really bad. It's a home game for us. We didn't really come out, and we didn't really seem to be as switched on as I was expecting for a home game against a poor team. We seem to have this little habit, I guess, of not approaching the games in the right mental space when we're playing teams that are a little bit, they're outside the 8, or they've only won a couple of games for the season. Are these mental demons going to be an issue for us this week, Mr. Mystery Guest? Are we going to come out firing?
That's actually a really good point. I've noticed that for a couple of years, to be honest. It seems like we come sort of half-assed in the first quarter, and then we realise that we're not in front by enough, and then we sort of kick into gear. We did that against St Kilda. I'll probably be behind at quarter time. They're a side. They're not a very good side. I think it's still a little bit of a game, because if they play at their best and we're taking them seriously, then they'd probably catch us.
Oh yeah, we definitely need to be switched on in the first quarter. I think that's key. But like you said, if we're not switched on, they could very easily be leading us to that at quarter time, which is something we've seen countless times in the past. We've been playing a not very good opposition. I think one of the games that frustrated me most was, I think it was a couple of seasons back, maybe even last season actually. We were playing against Carlton at the MCG, and Carlton were going really poorly at the time, and we just absolutely did not switch on for that match whatsoever, and we only narrowly beat them, in the last couple of minutes of that match. That was a game that really frustrated me, and I don't think I want to see that this week. If we're really serious about playing, finals football, St Kilda's an opposition that, as many people on the board, big footy boards who are saying this is a danger game, you're saying this is a danger game as well, and I tend to agree a little bit. If we're serious about playing some deep into the finals this season or in the next couple of seasons, developing teams like St Kilda are really the teams that we should be putting the foot down and really, becoming percentage boosters for us. Because really the hard part of our draw is now over, I would say, after we've played, a whole bunch of the teams that are in the top 8 at the moment. So we don't want to cool off, but at the same time, we don't want to not be switched on for these matches. So I think it could be a little bit of a problem, but we'll see on Sunday, of course, when the game is happening. Mr. Mystery Guest, who are you tipping? I think it's pretty obvious you'll be tipping Adelaide, but what do you reckon on the margin, and who do you reckon will be best on ground for us? I think there's some people yelling at Mr. Mystery Guest in the background there. So we'll see what's going on there. I think this week I'll be tipping Adelaide this week. I think the margin, it's interesting. I could see us very easily being a close one, maybe 20 or 30 points, but if I just go by my head, I think this would be maybe a 40 or 50 point victory for us. So it could be interesting on the betting, because I think the margin or the line for this week is something like 30 points. So it could be interesting there. I see, Mr. Mystery Guest, you've returned. What do you reckon will be the margin this week?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was thinking that I'd probably be happy with a 5-goal win, but I'm hoping that we really push them and win by 50 to 60 points.
And who do you reckon will be best on ground?
I think it's going to be wet on Sunday.
Oh, really?
And Sloan normally talks about how he loves wet weather footy, so I'll say Sloan.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him dominating some games again. I mean, interesting thing, like last season we beat St Kilda by 46 points, and the season prior to that we beat them by 86 points at Etihad Stadium. So we've been, we've had the wood over St Kilda for a number of years now. They've definitely been improving over this time, but I agree. I think if we're really serious, it should be a 40, 50 point win, like I was saying, and like you were saying. All right, so I guess that concludes our little preview of the St Kilda game. Let us get into Game of Crows. All right, so last week in Game of Crows, we had some winners. Now, Mr. Mystery Guest, you tipped or predicted that Henderson would get 3 tackles. Now, you've actually won a point for that. He had 3 tackles. So, Mr. Mystery Guest, how are you feeling about your little victory here in Game of Crows?
Oh, very happy. I checked the stats after the game, and when I saw the lookout, I thought Big Hendo stepped up in the second half. Good on him.
Yeah, really good effort for Henderson. Maybe he's not putting in, quite the defensive efforts we'd like to see, but 3 tackles is pretty good effort for him. We also had another winner, another Henderson prediction, Joel Constable, who said that Henderson would have at least 5 contested possessions. Guess what? Henderson had 5 contested possessions, so that is 1 point to Joel. Unfortunately, everyone else got no points, although we did have, surprisingly, a crazy claim that got pretty close. AC83 tipped that Charlie Cameron would have a career-high disposals, which he managed, career-high clearances, again he managed that, but career-high tackles, unfortunately, Cameron did not have career-high tackles. It was so close to getting the 3 points there, but unfortunately didn't quite get up. So the leaderboard at the moment, MMG, Joel, and Vardy Magic all currently on 1 point, everyone else on 0. So there's still quite a lot of competition there for the case of beer. Just as a reminder for people, if you wanted to play, this is a prediction game regarding the upcoming Crows match of the week. You have one of two options to enter. You can enter a bold claim, which is something that hasn't happened this season. This is worth 1 point. Or you can enter a crazy claim, something that hasn't happened ever, something like career highs for someone like Charlie Cameron. These are worth 3 points. The winner at the end of the season gets a case of beer sent to them by me. You can enter through Twitter, Spreaker comments, Facebook, Big Footy, all the usual places to connect with the CrowCast. Mr. Mystery Guest, this week, what is your bold or crazy claim for the St Kilda match?
Henderson. I'm going to go with Henderson again. I'm going to say he's only been averaging about, I think, 15-ish disposals so far. So I'm going to say he'll get 25 plus disposals on Sunday.
Okay, interesting. That's definitely a bold claim. I think over the past couple of weeks, his highest would have been probably about 20, I think, maybe a 20. Oh, no, he actually had 25 in the match against, let me have a look here, Geelong. So would you go 26 disposals? Will he beat his season high?
We'll go 26 then. I'm surprised he had 25.
Yeah, I think he surprised everyone. There's a bit of a few cheap disposals there by Hendo, but he's been making some money for the guys in the Game of Crows at the moment. So, yeah, he's a little bit of a moneymaker. I'm going to go this week, I reckon, none of the tall forwards of St Kilda kicking more than one goal. So I don't think any of their tall forwards will manage, multiple goals this week. So I'll have to see. Do you reckon that's a bold claim, MMG?
For none of them to kick. I mean, Bruce is pretty good, and he kicked 5 on us last year. So I think for none of them to kick, so they can kick 1 goal each, no more than that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
So that counts as bold, you reckon?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Hopefully I'll get myself on the leaderboard this week. Everyone else, don't forget to enter Game of Crows, be in the running. Getting a couple of really good ones this week, or last week, sorry. So, yeah, definitely get in with that. The more people, the better, I reckon. So we'll move on to our SANFL game. What a huge surprise. We actually have an SANFL game this week. No more buys. Well, there's a buy in 2 weeks. Ridiculous. Anyway, no more buys right now. We're playing Sturt, Saturday, 2:10 p.m, Peter Motley Oval. Coming into our side, we've got Keith, Wig, both of those guys returning after not playing the past couple of weeks. And 3 guys from our AFL bench to be decided. So we'll have a few more AFL guys on our side this week. No outs for the moment, although we're still missing Riley Knight with a 5-week ankle injury at the moment. Not really sure when he's returning with his concussion. It's pretty sad for him. Hopefully we see him back at his best soon. And Kirtley Hampton, who's currently on track to be seen after the bye. So that's exciting for us there. But for the moment, Sturt are ladder leaders. We've got Brad Crouch playing the SNFL. Mr. Mystery Guest, are we winning this match? Because we didn't win the last SNFL game we played.
Yes, that's true. But I think it's always a little bit hard to sort of go against our SNFL side, especially when they've got a really strong lineup like they have this week. Yeah,
and we'll be seeing Van Bello back in there. By all accounts, I think it's pretty likely he'll be back there. And, we'll be playing Brad Crouch to the centre. We've got Greg, we've got Ellis Yeoman still in there. Keith coming back to bolster the defence. We're only missing 3 guys in their injury list, so hopefully we can see some form getting into guys like Brad Crouch. Will probably still be in there for another couple of weeks, but if we can see Duday, Menzel, these guys performing well, it'll be really good for our team. Do you have any other thoughts about the SNFL game? Because they're not really all that exciting with our powerful lineup.
Yeah, I was just thinking. So we'll have Keith and Otten back, but Ramsey's also playing in defence instead of forward. I think probably that doesn't say a lot with how to our forward line, but I wonder if the club has decided to sort of change his role and look at him more as a defender now instead of a forward. Just with our emergencies, I reckon we might hold VB back in case we have an emergency, because we'll be playing on Saturday instead of Sunday. Wiggers are confirmed in, so we might keep one of Matt Crouch or VB back, and I think hopefully it's probably preferable to have VB one to stay out, I think.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is one of those, management issues I think the club has been struggling a little bit getting these sort of things right, and I agree. I think if we're going to keep any person out of playing the SNFL this week, considering the complete lack of consistency in the schedule over the past couple of weeks with so many buys, if it's anyone, it's got to be a senior player like Van Bello, who, doesn't really need to get the form in the SNFL, considering, we probably won't see him in the AFL too many times in the future. Whereas Wigg, he's missed 3 weeks of footy now, considering he was the travelling emergency a couple of weeks back. We really need to get games into these guys so we can start to see how their form's progressing and whether they'll be any good for us in the second half of the season. So I agree, Matt Crouch has got to play SNFL. We've got to see Van Burley, if they end up holding anyone back, it should probably be VB. We'll move on to the other matches of the week, though, because there's quite a lot of really interesting matches, I reckon, going on this week. We'll start, though, with the Friday night match, because this is the first game in Hobart under Friday night lights. North versus Richmond. Richmond's been in a bit better form this week, but, of course, North Melbourne, this is their home game. They've been pretty strong, 9-1 at the moment. Will Richmond, are there any chance of winning at all, or will it be a pretty comprehensive victory to North?
Games with Richmond in them always kind of interesting because of how they might turn up. Because when they play sort of inspired football, I guess, they can play pretty well, but then the rest of the time they're pretty shit. So that'll be interesting how they go into it. Friday night game. I wonder if they're sort of their final sort of opened up again a little bit in the last couple of weeks. So I wonder if they'll push really hard, but I think North will get the win.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's I've had such horrible luck tipping Richmond over the past couple of years. They're really hard to predict, but I think it's too hard to ignore North at home, down in Hobart especially. I think they'll give Richmond a bit of a touch-up. Geelong versus GWS. These are two top 4 contenders at the moment, but this game is at Simmons Stadium. This is actually a rematch. It's round 11, and we're already getting a rematch of these two teams. It's at Saturday twilight. I think Geelong will give they've been in not the best of form after losing to Carlton and Collingwood, completely destroying my tips, but whatever. I think Geelong will be too strong for GWS at home. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. That home advantage, like we spoke about a little bit before, that home advantage, I think will be a huge factor.
Yeah, we've seen GWS has been really strong at their home ground, and that's where they beat Geelong earlier this season. But away from home, they haven't been great. We saw that last week against us at Adelaide Oval, and Simmons Stadium is probably the hardest away trip in the entire competition. So very, very difficult for them to win over there, unfortunately for them, as much as I like to see Geelong losing. Western Bulldogs versus West Coast at Etihad Stadium Sunday afternoon. West Coast are known to be flat track bullies, not that great travelling. Another team that's struggling on the road this week. Western Bulldogs back at Etihad Stadium, their home ground. I see the Western Bulldogs winning this one, wouldn't say comfortably, but by a couple of goals at least. Would you be tipping Western Bulldogs to MMG?
Yeah, that seems like the obvious choice. Hopefully West Coast push them all the way and maybe just get over the line by a couple of points, but then turn up absolutely knackered next week.
Oh yeah, that'll be good. Of course, we're playing West Coast in Domain Stadium over in Perth next week, so it'll be good if they can, get really tired or something at the fast deck of Etihad. But yeah, Bulldogs probably too strong. Another game. This is another interesting match. Collingwood versus Port Adelaide at the MCG. This is at Sunday morning, so this is earlier than our game. In fact, anyone watching our game could probably watch this one a little bit before, because it should be over before we start. Port Adelaide, Collingwood, they're just slightly out of the 8. They're a couple of games away from breaking in. I don't really see either of these teams as being, contenders for the 8. I think they'll probably end up just missing out come the end of the season. But, Collingwood have been a complete reversal almost on their form from earlier this season to sit, 4 wins and 6 losses at the moment, whereas Port Adelaide, 5 wins, 5 losses have been, I wouldn't say fantastic or anything, but they've been a bit better. Collingwood, can they give Port a touch up at the MCG?
On form, I would actually tip Collingwood on form, but they had got a lot of injuries last week, and they'll probably bring back Cloak this week, which probably won't help them too much. So I'll say Port.
Yeah, interesting about Travis Cloak. If anything, he might, hamper the team, because we've seen when Travis Cloak has been playing VFL, Collingwood's form has miraculously improved quite a bit. So is he really the guy that is making Collingwood so shit at the moment?
I was just thinking about how when you're next to the wall, sometimes that gets something out of you. I think that could be something for Collingwood.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably Nathan Buckley, coaching for his... I mean, I think he got a contract extension, didn't he? But he's probably coaching a little bit for his career, considering their start to the season after their good, NAB Challenge form. They fell away pretty significantly. Now they're bringing themselves back up the ladder. Be interesting. I think this will be a close one and a hard one to tip. I think at the moment I'm probably leaning towards Collingwood at the moment, just because of the home ground factor and, like you said, those injuries. It could be not a good situation for them. There's a couple of other games this week. I think probably the other one to look out for in a battle of the tanking, Fremantle versus Essendon at Domain Stadium, Saturday night. Is Fremantle actually going to come out and play for this match, or will they, put the towel in the rack in the opening minutes and cruise through to a crushing defeat?
I think Fremantle might actually win this one, because if they lose to Fremantle at home, it makes it a little bit harder to sweep that we're not tanking line, to pull out that we're not tanking line again. So I think they'll actually probably pull the finger out a little bit more this week. They'll probably get a win. That way they can say, see, we're not tanking, we won a game.
Interesting. I mean, Ross Lyon's been pretty confident on the fact that his team isn't tanking, but I think it's pretty clear that they're eyeing to the future rather than winning matches at the moment. I would agree, though. I think Fremantle will probably end up winning this game just because it's at their home stadium, and to avoid those tanking allegations, the best way to do that is to win a match, even if it's against arguably the worst team in the entire competition. But nevertheless, we'll see how that goes on Saturday night. Should be an absolute spudbuster on the evening there, but we'll see what happens. Not too many other exciting games though this week. We'll probably move into our rapid fire question section just to end off the CrowCast at the moment. Will the Eddie Betts goal from last week, will that be beaten this year, or will that take out the victory?
No, I think it'll win. I think the other really good goal this year, although was probably the biggest fluke I've ever seen, was Tom Hawkins' goal off the ground from 50 metres out.
I remember that one.
I think that's the only goal that's really even close right now.
Yeah, I'd agree. That was a pretty good goal from Hawkins, but I think the Eddie Betts one is better, and he'll probably take home another car or whatever they win at the moment. Another question. Jack Trengove, he is back for Melbourne this week playing against Hawthorn. He's been out for 2 years with his foot injury. How good is it to see Trengove back playing again for Melbourne?
Yeah, it's great when players come back from long injuries. I think it was the same thing when we saw Daniel Menzel come back last year. Didn't want Geelong to win the game, but it was really good to see Daniel Menzel have a really good game and get 4 goals. So hopefully Jack can have a big game on the weekend.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Jack Trengove has been playing in the VFL since very early on in this season. Has been dominating there. So if his form can translate onto the field for Melbourne, they'll have another really gun midfielder to add to Petrarca and Viney and Tyson and all these guys that are currently building their midfield. They've got a really strong team there at the moment, and it's good to see Melbourne not being so terrible for once. Final question: when will we see Ricky Henderson out of our team? Will it be this week, or will it be maybe next week or later?
No, I think him being named in the side is a pretty good indication he'll stay in this week. A definite chance. He's right on the edge though, so I think if McKay plays well in the SNFL, he might be a chance to come back in. He might be squeezed out by sort of a slight reshuffle in the midfield, and we might see Brad Crouch come back in for Henderson eventually. But I think because he's right on the edge, I think won't be in the team for too much longer. Probably 50-50 he plays against West Coast right now, I reckon.
I guess it might hinge on his performance this weekend, but I agree. I think he's probably the 22nd player being picked at the moment. Like I mentioned, some of the previous casts and on the Big Footy boards as well. I'm not a huge fan of Henderson. I think he's a bit soft around the contest, and I'd really prefer to see one of our other outside players get a game at the moment. But I mean, if it's between Henderson and McKay, I mean, who do you really want in the team? Anyway, we'll see how that goes next week. We'll see what the changes are come Friday, and yeah, it will be interesting to see who comes in and out of our team. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening to the CrowCast Preview. We'll be back live next week, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Maybe Phoenix will be back for our cast team. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, BF CrowCast. We're on Facebook, BF CrowCast as well. We are also on iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating and a review. Now, actually, I was looking at the CrowCast iTunes pages just recently, and we have started to see some reviews from some people. So thanks everyone for sending in your reviews and your 5-star ratings. It really helps us to, increase in the rankings and get people to start, listening to our cast and everything. We've been pretty happy with our traffic and everything, but, we could always do with some more listeners. So if you have friends and everything from, who support the Adelaide Crows, point them to our cast and point them to, the Spreaker page. We've got all the cast there. We'll be back on Sunday as well with the review cast. Maybe point them to that or something. 7 p.m. Phoenix will be on there. And Crowbar Monday and Tuesday Night Live, of course, on Tuesday. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will be back next week.
Boy.